The concept of Gaming Factory's JDM, Japanese Drift Masters, is enough to get the blood pumping. A drift-focused racing game with a large open world based in Japan with manga-style storytelling, the spirit of legendary properties like Initial D is right there, waiting to be channeled as one dives into the country's racing culture. The results are a different story entirely. Japanese Drift Masters has a pretty impressive looking world, yet struggles to do anything notable with it. Mission designs are full of contradictory goals and annoying AI. Progression is less about maximizing rewards and more about grinding out reputation and leveling up a car. The drifting intrigues with its fundamentals, yet frustrates in their utilization. Then, there are the collisions, which defy logic and real-world physics. The story begins with Thomas, later nicknamed Toma, mourning his father's passing. Things seem dire after he loses his license and can't race in Europe for a year after he converses with Hideo and learns about a garage his father left for him in Japan. As you might expect, he quickly becomes involved in street races, gains a heated rival in Hasashi Scorpion Hattori, meets a mysterious masked individual, and is embroiled in an unresolved case. All in less than 2 chapters, naturally, but the actual missions make the narrative feel less exciting than it actually is. At times, they tie in well enough, show up for your showdown with Hasashi. At others, less so, bordering on the bizarre, like matching Hasashi's drift and sticking close throughout an entire race as specified, only for him to laugh at you afterwards like nothing even happened. The actual writing isn't anything special and has its fair share of grammatical errors, but the art is solid. Character details and expressions could be improved in some places, but the line work is clean, and the cars are impressively depicted. Unfortunately, some speech bubbles have way more text crammed in than others, resulting in a much smaller font, and there's no option to zoom in also. The manga is the only fundamental means of storytelling. Aside from appearing in cars or via in-game menus, the characters may as well not even exist. To make things worse, you can't overlook the story either because it feeds into the mission-based gameplay loop. JDM begins with main missions to complete and driving school available to hone your skills. As you progress, the world opens up with new mission types like underground races and additional delivery tasks. The former is straightforward enough: earn a specific amount of money and reach the end to make bank. Higher amounts mean less time, adding an element of risk versus reward. The delivery missions, on the other hand, are awful. Now, I'm not against a get to this destination and deliver a package with the allotted time objective, especially if it's in fun ways like Crazy Taxi, but JDM wants you to avoid hitting solid obstacles or cars lest you damage the delivery. Oh, and make sure you're drifting about to build up that style score, i.e. the exact opposite of driving carefully and avoiding traffic. The two requirements are so antithetical to each other that it's mind-boggling, and it's surpassed only by the fact that one solid collision can take off 35% of the item's durability bar. Is the package attached to the hood? Slamming into breakable objects is perfectly fine, by the way. You can also partake in challenges for drifting, grip, and more on specific tracks to earn money, which you then spend on more cars and parts. However, this doesn't change the fact that most of the world feels relatively unused, which is a shame because there are some aesthetically pleasing locales, like flower gardens and castles to admire. I'm not expecting Forza Horizon levels of open world design, but it feels like such wasted potential when it's not wasting my time to get to a mission. Starting Chapter 2, my next mission involved meeting Tiger, the aforementioned masked driver, south in the prefecture. No garage to fast travel to, thus began the long, arduous slog without any distractions along the way to liven things up and annoying bouts of traffic to prevent me from drifting around. One does become available later, but then I discovered that delivery and underground racing missions change locations upon completion, and they won't always be close enough to a fast travel point, further adding to the tedium. Gaming Factory recently addressed the frustrations that traffic can cause by letting it turn it off at any time. It doesn't outright excuse the delivery mission design, but it does help. However, it also removes the last vestige of life from the open world, making me question its existence all the more. Amid all of the complaining, I admit that drifting can feel good under the right conditions. When you hit a corner just right and balance the angle meter just right to chain a long drift, the initial D rush kicks in. It feels all the more enjoyable when you're going up against tougher opponents, especially since you're stuck with an Alpha Moriyama clunker for the entirety of the first chapter. And while more variety is desperately needed, I counted 27 cars in total. At least brands like Honda, Mazda, Nissan, and Subaru are all here. I also like how weather and track conditions can severely impact your driving, forcing you to accelerate more carefully. The problem is that drifting, especially when you must rack up enough points, is easily gained by simply wiggling back and forth. Early drifting competitions against the AI were a pain, especially since it makes almost no mistakes, when it's not willfully slamming into you during races. Then I implemented this approach, sometimes going off track in the process and racking up an extensive amount of points just for maintaining a long drift. The handling also felt off at times, with too much understeer at points, and improving accelerations and top speed resulted in my drifts consistently turning into spinouts. Probably working as intended, but considering the game wants me to be faster and execute those drifts, it feels like a clash of styles. The collisions are also utterly baffling at times. Veering off angle during a drift can reduce the multiplier to 1.0 and grant significantly fewer points. Hitting obstacles sometimes has the same effect and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes my car would begin wall riding like it's Mario Kart World. Even on arcade mode, it's immensely far-fetched. The collisions are also strange, unpredictable, and often frustratingly weighted against you. Then again, colliding into a car in the open world so hard that it changed directions and proceeded to drive back the way it came was unintentionally hilarious. Also, whether it's a Moriyama or a 2013 Subaru BRZ, be prepared to grind for the parts you want. Reputation must be leveled by either drifting through the world or completing missions, and only then can you purchase specific parts, even if you have the cash on hand. Even more frustrating is that the cosmetic parts directly tie into a car's level. If you want to embrace a core aspect of street racing, at least that's what JDM tells me, and customize its looks, you better get ready to grind. Then there's the performance, which is a mixed bag at worst and competent at best. Despite my CPU being below the recommended requirements, I had a relatively consistent 60 FPS on high settings at 1440p with DLSS set to quality. An attempt to play at Ultra was made, resulting in the frame rate tanking heavily during a thunderstorm. At least the flashes of lightning and rain droplets look nice, accentuated by the city skyline at night, though the overall fidelity is above average. There are some decently catchy tunes, especially when turning into the rock and Eurobeat stations, though some of the lighter tracks can work wonders during drifts. They're not particularly memorable, but at least they add some atmosphere. I'm left dazed, confused, and a little annoyed at JDM, Japanese Drift Master. The concept felt ripe for a solid racer with a distinct style and mood, but the execution felt awkward and unfulfilling. It could shore up the driving and fine-tune objectives to deliver a better drifting experience. However, there's still much work needed on world design, AI, collisions, and progression, not to mention adding more content, before it can truly be called a master of anything, much less my time. Hey, did you know that we at Gaming Bolt upload new videos every day? Stick around, drop a like, subscribe, and hit that bell, and let us know what kind of content you'd like to see in the future with a comment below.